Right, you know, it's a process.
Good morning, everyone. Right, but it's my name is like has not fallen now. Spinach and these. I'd like to welcome you all.
I have to try for this. And but we're not sitting.
Oh, yes, okay. We're not. All righty. So welcome everyone this morning to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Pottstown. Welcome to everyone who's joining us here in the sanctuary. Welcome to those who are with us on Zoom, and welcome to those of us who are visiting online later in time. With all the choices that we have to spend our time, whether it be Sunday morning or any other time, I'm so glad you chose to be with us. This morning, our music will be played by Kate Price, and I'd like to send a shout out to Rick Dusky as technology lead today. Thank you both. For over 50 years, UUFP has been a liberal religious voice in the Pottstown area. I have all sorts of different things that I have in my elevator speech of what UUs believe. But today what I'd like to hold up is that UUs are kind of like Carl Rogers. We believe that people deserve unconditional love and unconditional acceptance, no matter who they are, and no matter where they come from, and no matter what they believe. The world can teach us a whole lot about all sorts of different people. And even if we disagree with people, they're still fundamentally human, and we still have to treat them with the respect that we wish they would give us. So the most important thing in our search is that our circle of love and compassion is big enough for everyone. So we hope your spirit and your heart and your mind are refreshed this morning as we once again explore the way love intersects with independence and pluralism. Sorry, I used to have a little different thing in there that was about the first principle, because that's my favorite principle, but we don't do principles anymore. I mean, we still do them, we still love them, they're still good, but now we're trying to do the software. So we come together this Sunday morning and every Sunday morning, not because we share a creed, but because we promise to support one another on our spiritual journey. Our services are very different every week, so if you don't love my services, you might love the next person. And whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, thank you for being here today. So now that I've rambled on, it is time for announcements. Does anyone have an announcement this morning? Yes. Wonderful, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Irene. So not only do I have an announcement, I also have visual aids. So exactly. So UUFP members and friends showed up loud and proud to the Good Trouble Lives On event. Okay, it was about civil rights and protect our vote. We were loud and proud, and we forged some really important community connections, including with the local NWACP chapter. And we're actually gonna try to get a speaker to come in here and speak. So, but yes, we've had a really wonderful time. Thank you for everyone who showed up, and I look forward to our next initiative.
Good morning, I'm Sam. Per the youth board, every month in the Sojourner, I will be putting in a little little section on facilities and ground projects updates. So you'll see in there, it's going to be somewhat of a running thing and looking at, okay, these are the projects we're looking at doing. These are the ones that have been done for the month, those kinds of things. So got to work on that today because I think I may have passed the deadline.
It's the 15th.
Oh well. I was away. So anyway, so I'll try to have that. It's not going to be a whole lot. It's just going to tell you what's been done, what we're looking at doing, and those kinds of things. Now that my vacation time is over, I'm going to work on getting the estimates for various things. So we'll have more of a closer update on what we're looking at doing and how much things would cost. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Diane. I'm going to be offering the service in 2 weeks on the 3rd of August. I won't be here next week to tell you. So on the 3rd, the children will be joining us. And we will be doing a drumming and chanting circle. I'm going to teach you some songs. We're going to make noise with percussion instruments. I don't have enough for everybody. I have quite a few, and mostly that are children friendly. But bring drums, bring instruments that are primarily percussion if you can, and be prepared to sing. Thank you.
Great. So I'd like to invite Chloe up to light the chalice this morning. We are lighting our chalice this morning with the words of Pat Vive Licti. The chalice we light today is a symbol of our faith. It binds us together as one people, a reminder that our strength is the shared hope for the world, and that our common work is the creation of beloved community among ourselves and in the world. Now we come to the time for the chime. So this part of our service is the part where I remind you that even though we have all this wonderful power in our pockets, computers that, like my mother was a computer programmer in the 70s when it was punch cards. And the thing that we have in our pocket there would not have been enough space to do that computing in the entire building that she worked in. And now it's in our pockets. But we can silence that and just be in this room with these people and listening to one another and being with one another. So let's take a time, close our eyes, settle ourselves more firmly into our chairs. Take a deep breath. Feel the way that you are connected to the earth. Feel the way that you're connected to the air. Next to take silence. For me, that's the only time it's truly silent my whole week long. Our opening words this morning are by Lynn Harrison. Committed to respond to the call of a wounded world, we join together this day with loving hearts and hands and minds. Embracing the interconnected web of water, air, and earth, we light a fire of sustaining hope, ever bright with love and justice. May we bring forth this day new wisdom, strength, and courage to create a new world, not of wealth, but well-being. A world of new peace and abundance for all. We give thanks for this earth, our shared and singular home. May we dedicate ourselves to its ongoing care, rising to the calls deep within us and all around us. May we respond today and always with courage and love. So now it's time for our first hymn. It's called Be Ye Lamps Unto Yourselves. And this is from some Buddhist words. And the way that we usually sing this one is we'll do it first as a call and response because the tune is a little bit different. And then we'll play it through twice and we'll sing it twice as a congregation. So I'm going to ask Kay to give me an F. All right, so I'm going to sing the first phrase, you sing it back to me. Be ye lamps unto yourselves. Be ye lamps unto yourselves. Be your confidence. Be your confidence. Hold to the truth within. We'll all go together. Thank you guys, that's one of my favorites. All right. So now it is time for a story. And whether you're young in body or spirit, you're invited to come on up to the front to listen to a story. If you're more comfortable sitting down, it's okay. You don't have to take a look. This story is what we're talking about today in service. We are talking about free will, and we're talking about your ability to make choices for yourself. And this story is a fun story about somebody who makes some choices for herself. Some choices. It's called 17 Things I'm Not Allowed to Do Anymore. It's by Jenny Offeld and Nancy Carpenter. I had an idea to staple my brother's hair to his pillow. I am not allowed to use the stapler anymore. I had an idea to glue my brother's slippers to the floor. I'm not allowed to use the glue anymore. I had an idea to tell my brother's fortune. She would be eaten by hyenas. I'm not allowed to tell my brother's fortune anymore. I had an idea to walk backwards all the way to school. I'm not allowed to walk backwards to school anymore. See what happened? What happened when she tried that? Give a picture. They frantically had to stop because somebody was gonna run her over. I had an idea to do my report on George Washington on beavers instead. I am not allowed to do reports on beavers anymore. To all the beavers that ever lived, and she replaced George Washington's face on a $1 bill with a beaver. I had an idea to dedicate my report to all the beavers that have ever lived. I'm not allowed to dedicate my report to beavers anymore. I had an idea to personally tell the class that I own 100 beavers. I am not allowed to tell anyone that I own beavers anymore. Okay, we're gonna skip this one. I had an idea to set Joey Whipple's shoe on fire using a magnifying glass. I am not allowed to set Joey Whipple on fire anymore. Still allowed to use a magnifying glass, just not to set Joey Whipple on fire with it. I had an idea to walk home backwards from school, walking home, totally different from walking there. I'm not allowed to walk backwards home from school anymore either. I have an idea to freeze a fly in the ice cube tray. I'm not allowed to make the ice anymore. I had an idea to wash my hands in the dog bowl before dinner. Was the dog look happy about that? Dog was pretty grumpy. I mean, if I were the dog, I wouldn't want her hands in my bowl either. I am not allowed to wash my hands in the dog bowl. I had an idea to give my brother a gift. The gift of cauliflower. And I don't know if you guys can see the picture, but she's actually got her fork and she's like. I am not allowed to give the gift of cauliflower anymore. I had an idea to order a different dinner from my mother. I am not allowed to pretend my mother is a waitress anymore. I had an idea to tell a sad story of a mother who fell into a volcano. Making her volcano out of mashed potatoes. Yeah. She's not allowed to tell sad stories anymore at dinner, especially not with visual aids. I had an idea to pretend I had been struck deaf when I heard, "Go to your room." And see, she does this. She's like, not pretend deaf again. I'm not allowed to pretend I've been struck deaf anymore. I had an idea that I might run away to live with the friendly, happy beavers. I'm not allowed to talk even a little bit about beavers anymore. I had an idea to say the opposite of what I mean to trick everyone. I'm sorry. I'm allowed to say the opposite of what I mean forevermore. So she was showing something called free will. Do you think she was doing it right?
Yeah.
Anyhow, so that is our story for today. Thank you guys for sitting with me and thank you for humoring me. One of my daughter Cordelia's favorite stories ever, because she would also like to have opposite day and give the gift of cauliflower. For our reading today, I have a reading by Tim Atkins. It is from 2019, so it's actually from before the pandemic, but it still feels relevant today. It's called To Be Resilient. And he starts with a quote from Louis Pasteur. "Let me tell you the secret that has led me to my goal. My strength lies solely in my tenacity." And then he tells a story. He says, "When I was a child in Georgia, we took a field trip to a nature center called Oxbow Meadows. At the time, I didn't know what an oxbow was. I just knew I totally loved the name. Later on in life, I learned that as a river flows, it will erode its banks over time. And what might start off as just a little divot erodes and erodes until it forms a classic river bend. An oxbow refers to this kind of U-shaped bend in the river. And an oxbow lake is when the river has eroded the bank of the bend to the point where it cuts off from the main stream. Think of like cutting a line across the top of a U. Well, what happens to the bottom of the U is that it's no longer getting access to the running waters of the river. It becomes an oxbow lake. There are so many spiritual lessons from the natural world. And in a season that is about to be in gatherings and water communions, this is one for me. Oxbow lakes as a beautiful combination of resiliency, strength, and flexibility. It takes a long time for an oxbow to fully form into an oxbow lake. The water doesn't care, it just keeps going. If there's something in the way, it'll just bump up against it and go around it. If water was too rigid, it wouldn't be able to flow down the banks of the river. But we all know about the strength of water too. Water can do incredible things, incredibly beautiful things, incredibly destructive things. Running water can be the strongest force in our natural world, breaking down rocks, digging out grand canyons, swallowing an entire island. It's this strength that helps water erode the walls of the river, eventually forming the oxbow. We often think that strength and flexibility are the opposite sides of the same coin. But when they're united with resiliency, you can literally move the earth. Resiliency united with strength and flexibility creates beauty in the world and creates new spaces for life to flourish. In this time of my life, at this time in our history, I need this kind of oxbow resiliency more than ever. And he ends with a prayer. May we all have oxbow strength, carving through mountains, determined to change. May we all have oxbow flexibility, bending around curves, overcoming obstacles. May we all have oxbow faith moving forward. And this one spoke to me especially because of the tragedy in Texas and the power of water and the strength and the resilience of the people who are coping with that awful change. And of course, now I have no segue into the offering. My apologies. We are a free church with no ecclesiastical hierarchy, no government agency has any authority over us. We maintain our status as a free church by accepting no money from an outside source. So if there's no money from outside sources, that means we are supported solely by ourselves, which is amazing because we are a community that cares and supports each other. If you're a visitor, your presence is just such a blessing to us. You don't need to bless us additionally. Thank you all for the morning offering, given in a spirit of generosity and received with gratitude and love. And now we have a responsive reading. It is a little more depressing than I thought it was upon rereading it, but it's also kind of great because it is about caring and it is about not turning away from things that might otherwise upset us. It's number 666 in the hymnal, but it's also on the screen. It's a legacy of caring. Despair is my private pain, born from what I failed to say, failed to do, failed to overcome. I turn to you to renew my life. I turn to the world, the streets of the city, worn tapestries of brokerage firms. Rage and pain in the faces that turn from me, afraid of their own inner worlds. the forces of our nation. From within this world, my despair is transformed to hope. So more than we believe. So I took a lot of inspiration for this service today from Piero Ferrucci's book, Your Inner Will. He also wrote the book on the power of kindness. He's an interesting thinker and he draws things from lots of different traditions. But I thought it was really interesting the way he approached your will. There's really like two different schools of thought on free will, on people having will. There's determinism, which is kind of more of a theory that everything that affects us determines how we behave in general. So our behavior is predominantly controlled by forces outside of us. And free will is a theory that people have control over their actions and that all of our things, everything we do is a choice. So Sam McLeod, writing for Simply Psychology, describes a couple different strands of determinism. One is external determinism, where the cause of behavior is outside of the individual, like societal pressures or the media people consume or the family, their cultural influences. And then internal determination would be more like an individual's reactions are influenced by biology and brain chemistry and genetic predispositions and hormonal fluctuations. So internal versus external determinism is kind of like the nature-nurture debate. Thinkers such as B.F. Skinner, famous for the Skinner box and operant conditioning, and Ivan Pavlov, famous for the dog experiments, believe that free will and motivation are illusions. I myself am not much of a behaviorist, and I've often kind of dismissed this thinking. But if I want to teach my dog to sit, I use positive reinforcement. And the most common form of positive reinforcement at the moment is clicker training. I should have brought a clicker in with me so you guys could hear it. It sounds like somebody is flicking a top, like a pop top. So in his time, Pavlov was actually better known for his studies of digestion. That's actually what he got his Nobel Prize in, was digestive enzymes. But he learned about operant conditioning because he noticed that the caretakers who fed his dogs, whenever they came into the room, the dogs would start salivating. And since he was like capturing digestive enzymes and they start with saliva, he noticed, oh, the food isn't even here, just the caretaker walking up makes them salivate. So then he started associating the caretaker coming in with a bell. And then he noticed, hey, every time the bell goes off, the dogs salivate. Well, clicker training is a lot like that Pavlovian bell. The way you start to train your dog with clicker training is you click, you give them a treat, you click, you give them a treat, you click, you give them a treat. And after a while, they start to associate just the noise with a treat. And so that's the reward. The reward isn't even food anymore. It's just, and if you don't have a clicker, like I don't actually carry a clicker, I just click at my dog. Hey, Nashi, come here. So Pavlov's conditioning was influential for B.F. Skinner. Skinner started with experiments on rats, and the rats were taught to press a lever in order to receive food. Like they live in a little box and they could press a lever when they wanted food. And he found that if he changed the conditions where the food was available, like if he only had food available when the light went off, they would stop pressing the button when the light was off, and then the light would come on, and they'd be like, come on, now, food, now. And they would get all that they could while the light was on, because you never know how long the light's gonna be off for. Skinner, he didn't just believe that you could teach animals to respond for food. He also believed that in order to learn, an individual has to actually engage in behavior rather than just passively receive instruction. And when you think about that one, that makes sense. Like no amount of listening to the piano is gonna make me a better piano player. I actually have to sit down and do it, and I don't. Nor do I make my child do it, which I should. But on the other hand, Skinner was one of the people who really modernized education because he believed that children were being taught in ways that would make them not want to learn. So when he went to school, it was very common to like punish kids for getting stuff wrong. And what he thought is, oh, we're conditioning children that every time you come to school, you're gonna be in pain. So why are kids gonna want to like school after that? And that kind of makes sense, which is another reason that I try not to make my child practice piano because it's painful for her and for me. Also, the recorder, oh my goodness. Who invented the recorder? And you know, when you hear somebody who can actually play the recorder, it sounds beautiful. I don't know why we give it to like 8-year-olds. Okay, anyhow. But I think it is interesting that behaviorism, which seems to suggest that human will is static, can lead to innovations in learning. So Skinner believed that you could teach any child any age-appropriate skill with 5 steps. Clearly specify the action or performance the student needs to learn. Break down the task into small, achievable steps going from simple to complex. Let the student perform each step, reinforcing correct actions. Adjust so that the student is successful until they finally reach their goal. And then shift to intermittent performance reinforcement to maintain performance. So, for example, Skinner created a machine that would aid in teaching people rhythm. So it would gradually enforce better and better performance. Like at first, if you were clapping sort of on the beat, then you would get your reward. But then the closer you got to the more you do it and the closer you get to being on the beat, the more picky the machine is about giving you rewards until it only rewards you when you're doing it absolutely correctly. And anyone who's done any kind of learning app is probably pretty familiar with this type of rewards system. Like I'm someone who does Duolingo, and when I first started doing Duolingo, if I made sound during the speaking exercises, it would say great. And I'm like, but I was talking to my kid in English. But as I got farther and farther along, it would only reward me if I sounded sort of like I was speaking French. Until the point where now if I say something that is like just slightly off, like the accent, I'm not using the right accent on the E, or then it just says, nope, that was wrong. And so it's doing the Skinner reinforcement. Free will is considered to be the opposite of determinism. So it's the theory that we have choice in how we act and what we do. Free will assumes that we have personal agency in our choices. Some of the researchers who support free will include Abraham Maslow. He's the one who came up with the hierarchy of needs. And Carl Roger, who was a pioneer of the client-centered approach to psychotherapy. So Carl Rogers believed that people thrive when they're given acceptance, love, and respect, and that people's well-being depends on their self-image aligning with their experiences. And when I read that, I thought, oh, so he believes in the inherent worth and dignity of every human person. But he also believed that people's experiences are entirely individual. So we each have a unique point of view and a unique perception of our experience. So 2 people who experience the same thing may come away with 2 different sets of what happened. And anyone who has ever like done anything with anybody else will know that sometimes you come in and one person says, oh my gosh, that was awful. And another person says, oh my gosh, that was wonderful. Like if you go to, let's say, a concert with your kid who loves the band, you don't love the band. You're having the same experience, but the way that you internalize that experience is very different. So Rogers believed that people thrive when they learn to trust their inner compass. We thrive when we learn to, as we sang this morning, hold to the truth within ourselves. My personal thinking is greatly influenced by the philosophy of free will. My mother was a minister who studied philosophy and psychology as part of her training. And looking back on it, her parenting was definitely influenced by Maslow and Rogers. My sister and I were talking recently about how lucky we were to have been raised with just not lip service to, but actual lived experience of unconditional love. We were given freedom and choice every day. As an example, I stopped eating meat when I was 12. I just didn't want to anymore. And my mother could have fought with me about that because that is one of those realms, like what you eat impacts your health. And she could have said, no, you're a growing child, you really need to keep eating what I feed you. And instead, she bought me books on vegetarian nutrition, books with vegetarian recipes and vegan recipes, because there was no internet, I couldn't just look them up online. And even though she didn't cook any vegetarian meals for me, she decided to put me in charge of buying groceries and in charge of meal planning so that I could learn to cook for myself. So that I would learn how to, if this is my choice, if I really want to not eat meat anymore, she gave me the tools I would need so that I could move forward into the world as an adult who was able to take care of herself. And I think about that now and I think how different it could have been if she had fought me on it. Because I still wouldn't have eaten any meat, but I also would not have had a balanced diet. We think of determinism and free will as opposites. As Ferrucci says, I'm quoting here, the opposite of will is fatalism, renouncing initiatives and conceiving that the cause of all that happens to us is outside ourselves. This attitude may have some advantages, but it's ultimately harmful. People who see the cause of their destiny in the external world, who feel their lives as organized by factors beyond their control, have a greater probability of being stressed, anxious, and depressed. End quote. And when you think about that, that's true. Like any time where you feel like your choices are taken away, that's the time when you really start to feel just powerless. You start to feel like you can't go anywhere, you're feeling trapped. In reading about their work, the behaviorists who I was prepared to disagree with don't actually seem to be fatalist in that way. They don't believe our choices are static. Even though we have these circumstances that are around us, we have these immutable things about us, like our DNA. We can't really go in and change our DNA. We are still able to learn and change, and we don't choose our circumstances, but we choose how we react to the circumstances. Behavioralists still believe in a growth mindset. We are individuals with individual experiences of the world and individual strengths and challenges, but we can choose to lean into those strengths and we can choose to put effort into the areas we find challenging. My husband, who is a track coach and much more of a behavioralist than I am, says, look, I can't teach everyone to be the top sprinter in the state, but I can teach everyone to get a little bit more speed if they're willing to put in the work. So our question is, where do we want to put in the work? Ferrucci used the analogy of our attention as a flashlight in a dark room. The beam is too narrow to illuminate the entire room at once, so we have to choose where we want to shine the light. In times like these, I feel kind of like I'm swinging my flashlight wildly around corner to corner. There are so many different things that I wish I could change. There are so many things that I wish I could make different and places that I want to be the change I want to see, but I'm only one me. And I've only got a finite number of hours in each day. And it's hard to think about, but there are things that I have to let go. But the days that I feel the most balance, the days where I find my beam of attention landing on the things that I find important, are the days where I take time to sit still and to listen and to be my own lamp. So Piero Ferrucci has an exercise for this, if y'all don't mind walking through this exercise with me. So he says, we think of it this way. I have a body, but I'm not my body. So you can sit and observe the physical sensations that you're having, but you are not those sensations. I have emotions, but I am not my emotions. You step back from your emotions and you observe them, but you're not the same as them. Emotions flow and you remain the same. I have desires, but I'm not my desire. You take a mental inventory of your most usual and frequent desires. Some are more intense, others less so. Some are more continuous and habitual, others occasional. And you let them go because they are not you. I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. You look at the beliefs with which you identify most and the ideas which most often recur in your mind. And you see them as external to yourself. They're outside you, they are not you. I have roles, but I'm not my roles. This is the one that spoke to me the most because a lot of times we define ourselves by who we are to other people. We define ourselves by my job or my relationship partners, my family, and who we are to the people in each of those roles. And what he says is, I have roles, but I'm not my roles. However important they may be, no one role is what you truly are. Roles can change or cease, but your I remains. Once you've detached from all the various contents, all that's left is your I or yourself. So practical hints he gives are, since when you go through this exercise, it touches on things that are really connected to the way you see yourself. You're going to come up with reactions, like automatic reactions that are like, I don't agree with that. That feels weird. But you have to think to yourself, I'm also not my reactions. The I is the part of you that is the same as it was 10 hours ago or 10 years ago. And he says, this exercise is useful even if you just simply start to wonder, who am I? I did that exercise and it really does help you to step back and take a moment of silence. But the exercise that I do most at home is actually just the meditation on breathing, the one that's in our teal hymnal. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. If you can take like 5 seconds to do that every day, just breathe in peace and breathe out love. It's amazing how much your flashlight stops swinging. When we take time to see that we are more than our biology, more than our emotions and thoughts, more than the roles we play or the work we do, we can truly be ourselves, and we can truly include all in our circle of enabling love. So if you'll please rise in body or spirit to join in singing hymn number 323 in a great hymnal to break not the circle. Now is the time in our service where we share our joys and our sorrows. We move this time of connection to the end of our service, so we have more freedom to share details of our lives that we wouldn't want out there on YouTube for posterity. So if you feel like you're weighed down by a sorrow, or if you feel like you're so full of joy that you can't wait to share, please come on up to the mic and say a few words. In reading our chalice extinguishing words. Thank you, Sheila. We extinguish this child's flame, but not the light of wisdom, the warmth of unity, or the fire of commitment. Beauty is there in our hearts and in our minds, till we are together. And we'll close today with the words of Eileen B. Carnot. As we part now from one another, let these be our thoughts. If that which is most holy lies within the human person, and if the greatest power in the world shines flickering and uncertain from each individual heart, then it is easy to see the value of human associations dedicated to nurturing that light. The couple, the family, the religious community, the friends, the neighbors. For the power of good in any one of us must at times waver. But when a group together is dedicated to nurturing the power of good, it's rare for the light to grow dim in all individuals at the same moment. So just like lighting a candle one to another, we borrow courage and wisdom one to another to warm us and to keep us warm until we are together again. So amen, blessed be, shalom, salam. Let's get some coffee.
I would like finance to my niece either. I know, my season. Kelly says hello. Kelly says hello. Wow, you know, better in university.
But.
She's been, having struggling in a lot of ways. Either, you know, we both had laryngitis. And, I don't know what goes with that.